You know, for our Adventures in Learning, we do this 4 times a year, and we're always looking for ideas and topics and speakers. So don't be afraid. If you have an idea, if you've seen somebody that you think might fit in for a future Adventures in Learning, let us know, because we probably want to pursue that. So we're always looking for ideas for our Adventures in Learning. Our trips, we had a group again just returned from Washington, D.C. If there are certain places you want to go, John? Oh yeah, and we're always looking for, destinations to go on our trips. We've been to Nashville, Branson, Cape Cod, Smoky Mountains, Washington, D.C. So if you have any ideas on that, let us know. We went to a Twins game last year and had some great seats and a good time. So we're going to do that again, and we're going to hopefully get a game picked out here soon. So we'll be doing another Twins game. We haven't set a date for sure, but we're probably looking late May. When it's warm enough to go up there. So we went up one year and April's a little cold, but so again, we're hopefully going to do the Twins game. But yeah, things like that keep us in mind, and we appreciate again all of you becoming involved in Shepherd Center. Well, let's move on. Our next speaker actually graduated from Cannon Falls High School back in 1965 and worked for 30 years in the civil service for the Department of the Army until 2006. Later, joined the Army Reserve, served 32 years, and at age 58, he was deployed to Kuwait under Operation Iraqi Freedom. Currently serves as the Veteran of Foreign Wars Judge Advocate, and is going to be the next Minnesota commander of the VFW, the first one from Cannon Falls, right? First one from Cannon Falls. We're proud of you, quite an honor. Please welcome Mr. Duane Hermanson.
Yeah. Thank you, Rod. Boy, is it great to be here today. Oh, what an introduction. Well, I'm just going to give you a little background on myself with the military. As Rod said, I did graduate Cannon Falls in 1965. And we all know that was the very height of the start of the Vietnam War. I was out applying for jobs, wasn't getting hired. And I think a lot of Vietnam vets can relate to that. I applied to a job down at the High Quality Bakery. I was going to go down and be a baker. And Glenn down there, the owner of the bakery, Glenn Molstrom, says, Duane, I have a recommendation for you. You're probably never going to get a job. You're 18 years old. Vietnam War is going on. I would recommend you enlist in the military. So I took his advice, went over to Faribault, enlisted in the Navy, went up to Minneapolis, did the tests, started doing the physical. I got pulled aside by a doctor when he was checking out my heartbeat. Had to go into his office, did some whatever. Had a heart murmur. Had no clue what a heart murmur was. Was fine the year before. Had a physical for school and had nothing like that. So they 4F'd me. So, following year, got married. 1967, got a job up in Anoka. Had to have a physical. Went to the physical, no heart murmur. Doctor didn't even know what I was talking about. They asked me all kinds of questions at the Minneapolis MEPS, and they said, have you ever had rheumatic fever? Have you ever had this? No. So, never seen the military. 1974 comes around, sitting here in Cannon Falls, got convinced, coerced by my stepbrother, Randy Miller, about joining the Army Reserve here locally in Cannon Falls. I said, you're nuts. I'm 28 years old, married, and 2 kids. Oh, come on, we need you. Well, he finally got me talked into it. Next thing I knew, I was over here at the Reserve Center, raising my hand, swearing in. Following month, up going getting the physical again. Had no problem. So that started my military career in 1974. 1978, I started my full-time career for the Department of the Army. Seems like anything ending in the number 8. Remember, I joined the reserves at age 28, and they decided to deploy me at age 58. July 1st of 2004, I got my notice. I was down working at the beer stand. I think many of you know that I used to run the American Legion beer stand for many years. And I got a phone call from one of my subordinate employees. He said, I received an email today from Goldie, who was my head civilian boss. I need to talk to you. Are you at the beer stand? Yes. All right, I'll see you after work. So he comes down to the beer stand, hands me the email, and I read it. Now, we all know, being active reserve, that day's gonna come. And I thought, no, this can't happen to me. And it was notice of being deployed, of which I was gonna be transferred to a unit out of Connecticut, a quartermaster battalion. And then I had to call Goldie, my boss, as soon as I got back to work after working the beer stand, so I did. And she asked me, she said, would there be a showstopper for you that we can keep you? I said, well, don't know, unless something came up and medically again. And so anyway, I departed Cannon Falls in August of 2004 to head out to Connecticut, New Haven. That was the unit that the Department of the Army transferred me to. Now, the Army Reserve is a little different than the National Guard because we are federal. So the Department of the Army can transfer us anywhere that's needed and fill positions, because you know the reserve strength was down. My wife Cheryl, my daughter Denise, and my grandson Zach went out with me to get to the unit. And what they do there, they do a farewell. And so we spent a couple days out there in New Haven, Connecticut, met fellow reserve soldiers from all over. And then we departed for Fort Drum, New York for our mobilization training. And we did that, of course, in August. Our orders at first was to go to Afghanistan. Now, those that have been in the military or are connected with the government, they know things change. Not only by the time we left New Haven, Connecticut to go to Fort Drum, New York, our orders changed again to go to Iraq. So, of course, all of our training was around the deployment to Iraq. You know, IED, improvised explosive training devices. It had a lot of that training because, you know, over there, that's all they have over there, those IEDs. Well, we were about 2 months, a little over 2 months into our mobilization training, and our orders changed again, Kuwait. Now, we had a lot of young soldiers very upset about that because they were ready to go up to Iraq. And being the elderly guy I am, I said, you ought to be happy on your first deployment because you are here all young enough, you're going to go on more than one deployment. And the next one could be Iraq. And so I said, just be happy where we're going. It wasn't that it was an easy deployment. It was still away from your family, and you're still in the desert, and we still had insurgents that were down in Kuwait. We'd get our messages that we had to be on the lookout for certain vehicles. And so it was interesting. The quartermaster battalion that I got transferred to was classified like a bed and breakfast. And we all know what a bed and breakfast is. And we were the command cell. I'm a supply warrant officer, and I did not do anything much to do about supply. They assigned me 3 jobs over there because we were the command cell of a deployment and redeployment camp. Units that were coming through to go north in Iraq, those that were getting done up in Iraq would come through our camp, and we would bed them down. And so anyway, my jobs over there was, I was the environmental officer, which I had to make sure that if any unit spilled gas or oil, if they were changing oil on vehicles or anything, they had to go out and clean it all up. Now, the desert over there in Kuwait, you would think it'd be nice, sandy, just dig a shovel, right? You had to go out there with pickaxes and chop up all that fuel that was silt on the ground. And then they had to take it over to an environmental place where we had contract employees that would rake it out, and then the sun would beat, suck out the oil and the gas. And then they'd take the sand and put it back out in the desert. I was a budget officer. I had a budget that was $10,000 a month that I would have to, there's my supply, would go into Kuwait City, I and another fellow warrant officer, and we'd go into Kuwait City in civilian clothes with our 9mm pistols concealed, because you can't be walking around Kuwait City with a sidearm on, and they don't want you to look military. So that was one thing. I had to have a haircut, but not really a short one, because they didn't want you to stand out amongst other Americans that were over there. And then I was a master driver trainer. I would license any soldiers that was coming into Kuwait so that they were legal to drive in Kuwait. So that were my 3 jobs I had over there. Our flight over there took 13 hours and 50 minutes from the time we left Fort Drum, New York. And that was stopping at Shannon, Ireland, Budapest, Hungary, and then on to Kuwait. So it was a long time we spent in the airplane. We got to Hungary, we couldn't even get off the plane because it was an unsecured airport. At least in Ireland, we were able to get off the plane and walk around in the middle of the night in the dark airport. So that was where we were at there. We had 6 temporary camps in Kuwait, and most of them were either a deployment or redeployment camp. I was on Camp Victory, we had Camp Virginia, Camp New York, Camp Navistar, which is a truck stop, technically, for all convoys going up into Iraq. So they had to stop there, spend the night, and then get up the next day, because they would never take the trucks up there in the evening, in the dark. And we had, so Camp New York closed while we were there. And Camp Arif John, that's a permanent military installation there in Kuwait. The Kuwaiti government pretty much funded 100% to build that camp. They want the Americans military to be there permanently. So that is one of our permanent duty stations now, is in Camp Arif John, Iraq, or Kuwait. One thing about being a budget officer, because we could not get supplies fast enough over there. They come over by ship mostly. And that's why we had the budget to go into Kuwait City. It was kind of a unique job because I was able to go in there in civilian clothes and shop. And they have all the modern American stores you can imagine in Kuwait City. They have Applebee's, True Value, Ace Hardware, shopping malls, everything over there. And we'll get through some of the pictures here after I get done here. And pick up supplies for every permanent station duty in that camp. If they needed paint to paint something, we had to go in there to buy it. And I have hundreds of pictures. I have a few today, but I have hundreds at home on flash drive of every camp that we visited as an environmental officer in Kuwait City. Some are pretty bad. The most fearful thing that we had over there, we were driving on the highway, is when you would see a Kuwaiti woman driving. Nothing against the women now, okay? So don't shoot me on this one. But what do they wear in Kuwait? They have their cover. And it depends on what tribe they are, because we learned this all from our interpreters, is the type of head cover that they wear. Now some have where they just have a little sheer thing from their nose down so you can't see their face and their hair is covered. Others, you have little slits in their eyes. Everything is covered from here up and from here down. The other one is where their whole face is covered with a sheer see-through type thing. Now, when they're driving, they have no peripheral vision. Every time we passed one, I look and they weren't looking at us, they weren't turning, and they were just flying about 100 miles an hour. You don't see a speed limit sign over there. And many accidents, I got a couple on the slideshow here, but many accidents happen in Kuwait City area. It's just terrible. And so they pass you, you kind of be cautious, and you pass them, you gotta be cautious, because you never know, they just change lanes when they want to. They never look behind them. So it was interesting. And, but I'll tell you, being over there, rather be in Kuwait, because we had insurgents, like I said earlier. Iraq, you're still away from home. And like Sarah said, what kept her going was the communication. That kind of kept myself going over there, because even though you're 58 years old, you're still separated. And you're in a country that they like you or they don't like you. Depends on who you talk to over there, even in Kuwait. Even though we saved them when Iraq invaded them back during Desert Storm. And, but the communication today over there is just awesome, with the internet cafes, the email back home. And you'd read the email in daytime, and of course it was night over here. So anytime I would email Cheryl, my son, my daughter, when you're old, you got old children, and you had grandkids. So they would all get emails to me, and they'd get emails to me, and so just keeping up with all that. But it was, you're still over there, and in a country that is it's dirty over there. I mean, they got garbage. They don't they don't have landfills like we do over here. They kind of have landfills, but it's all open. So whenever you're driving on the highway, all you see is garbage blowing around. So it's really, they don't clean nothing up over there. And you would think they would in Kuwait because of all the Americanism that they have over there. I mean, they have everything you can think about over there. The Kuwaiti men, they, with their oil, because they have enough oil underneath the ground over there that will probably last them about 100 years yet or better. The reason that we don't buy oil from Kuwait is it's a very low-grade crude oil. So we do not get any oil from Kuwait, which is okay. I wish we'd start looking at our own resources more here in the United States. But anyway, it's a very, very dirty country over there. But anyway, at this time, I'd like to start a little slideshow here, John, if I could. And we'll talk through each of the slides, lights are off, so hopefully you can see some of them. I did not, like I said, I did not bring all my pictures up. We'd be here for about 2 days. Even my wife, I don't think, has looked at all the pictures, but yeah. Okay, here's just a few pictures here. We'll go through them. You can't see this, but it was a time of day. This was taken in early June, and it's 12:33 in the afternoon, and it's 40 degrees Celsius. Now, that's about 104 degrees temperature, which doesn't sound bad, but it was early June. Now, July, August, when we had July, August come up, we'd have our thermometer sitting out in our talk area, and it'd be 10 o'clock in the morning at 120 degrees. You go over there about 12 o'clock and look at the same thermometer, because they only went to 120, and I tried finding one going shopping in the Kuwait City that went beyond 120 degrees. They don't make them. 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you walked over there, it was almost to zero. So you just kind of had to guess what the temperature was over there. It was definitely over 120 degrees. And that was about every day in July and August. It's like our days over here. July and August usually get to be our hottest days over here. And that was the daytime temperature over there. Nighttime would get down to about 90-some. And we were not allowed to take off any part of our uniform when we were in uniform. We worked 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 7 days a week. And you're standing out there in July or August, just having a little conversation with somebody about, what's going on. And the sweat was just pouring down your arms. Next slide. Here's our camp. You can see part of it there. We got some tentage there because everything we lived in over there was tents. It was called Tent City, wood floors in them. And that's a Black Hawk coming in for a landing. They were bringing someone in, I suppose, a dignitary, like a general or somebody. But, you know, I just thought it was good pictures. I took it. I'm a picture freak. Next slide. Okay. They don't have office space over there. They were pretty limited. And what they would do is they would take connexes, like a 20-foot connex. You see them haul on trucks here in Minnesota. And we would build an office in there. So these are two guys from India. Now we had a lot of third country nationalists that were on our camp. And they were actually the worker bees that did all that. We had construction worker bees. All of our cooks were third country nationalists, and a lot of them came from India. It was a way that they could make some money. So they were they were electricians. So they were getting the lights ready to go in my office area. Next. Kuwaiti Towers. Like I said, going into town, you could take a lot of pictures of Kuwait City. The Kuwaiti Towers were actually inside, were destroyed when the Iraqis came down and invaded Kuwait. We were able to get up into them. We've seen some pictures of what the damage was inside. Surprisingly, that the Iraqi military did not implode them and blow them up. But they did go up into them, and they did do some firing with their weapons up there and all that. And we've seen the remnants of that in some old pictures. There's like neat little 3 towers. Next. Here's a sandstorm. This is one of many sandstorms that we had at our camp. There were some times that they were so bad you couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. And you can see some light sets, not many, but the sand is very fluffy on top of that hard crust. Like I said earlier with environmental, you had to use a pickaxe to get through, but you had just a little bit of powdered sand on top, and that would blow all over the place. And it was tough. You had to put a bandana across your face because you couldn't stand it out there. Sand hitting your face. Next picture. Here's just a view of our tent city of our Camp Victory. These tents are where all of our troops, when they would come through or go north to Iraq, that's where we would bed them down. And I don't even know how many tents we had on there. It was a huge camp. Next. Okay, as I was stating, accidents in Kuwait. These cars sit on the side for weeks. They are in no hurry to clean up any accident vehicle. And you look at some of these, and I remember I said, these Kuwaitis over there, they drive fast. I mean, we'd be driving, 75. We'd try and keep up with the traffic, and they'd be passing us. And that's a devastating accident there. But they leave the vehicle sitting on the shoulder weeks, months. We can go buy one when we make a trip down to another Camp Airtown or someplace, and that car was still sitting there. They're not like here in the United States. I'll tell you, we clean them up immediately. Next. Okay, like I said earlier, they have everything over there. You think about it, if we have that restaurant here, especially a chain, they're over there, and there's the Hard Rock Cafe. They got Applebee's, they got McDonald's, they got Burger King, they got everything over there. They are Americanized over there. And a lot of it is due to the fact that we have a lot of American school teachers over there that actually teach their children. The Kuwaitis do not work because they receive their money, the men, from the oil. And our interpreter made a comment to me one time. I said, well, how much do each of these Kuwaiti men make? He said, about $20,000 a month. I said, you gotta be kidding me. Wow. The only time you see a Kuwaiti working over there is when you went by a bank, because they want to make sure that their money is safe. So that's the only time you see a Kuwaiti man work over there. Next. They, in their districts over there, these are all jewelry stores, okay? You see that throughout any suburb of Kuwait City. You'll see a line of jewelry stores, then all of a sudden this side of the street, block, you see a line of computer stores. So they don't, in their community, they don't have one here, one over here, one maybe 2 blocks away. They put them all in one line. So you just go through them all in this shop, get the best deal. And you Jew them down. Well, I got told I could get this for this price at this store, then you Jew them down at the next store. It's crazy over there. Next. Here's a couple Iraqi, or at least one Iraqi cannon that appeared at our camp, one of our military units that was redeploying back to our camp. Looked like they wanted to take it home. Well, us being the command cell, we could not bring things home. And of course, this is one of them that they would not allow to bring home. Okay? So that got stopped at our camp. Probably went for scrap, don't know. But we couldn't even bring home an Iraqi bayonet. We had boxes that when the soldiers would come back through our camp to get ready to pack up, clean their equipment, and come home, they would put them in them boxes. And then we'd have to dig them out of there, put them out, and then we'd store them somewhere. Even Iraqi bayonet troops were coming home, wanted to bring them home, customs stopped them. They had to dispose of them. Now, I don't know what difference it makes for an Iraqi bayonet. I can understand an AK-47, you know, but a bayonet, I mean, how many people back in World War II would bring things home in Korea? So it's a whole complete different war. Next. Okay, another one, Starbucks coffee. Did a lot of stopping there for Starbucks coffee. It's the only place you can get good coffee. Because I'll tell you what, our dining facility did not make good coffee. So it was always a nice treat for us that the two of us were going into Kuwait City a lot because we could have ourselves a little treat. And so that was good. Next. That's another accident alongside the road, one of the suburb areas. Next. And there's our mortar pool park. This is where all the units, when they were coming through us, that's where they did all their repairs on their vehicles, make sure there were no oil leaks, clean up all the sand on them. They could not go on board ship with oil leaks or sand. They did not want the sand back here in the United States. So they had to be spotless. So that's where they pulled all their maintenance. And then from there, they went to the wash point at Camp Arifjan because it was all concrete, blacktop roads. And they cleaned them there and washed them up, finalized washing them, and then they take them down to the ships and board them up on the ships. So that was our mortar pool area. Next. There's a skyline view of Kuwait City during a very hazy day. Sandy day, you know, the sandstorms. Hardly even see any of the buildings there. Next. Here's Bazaar. When we had our surges, when all the troops were either coming back through us to go home or up north, vendors would set up all their goods for sale at our bazaars on our camps. Even up in Iraq, they had bazaars. It's just a new war over there. And so that's where you got your good deals. You Jew them down, you know, buy rugs or jewelry or whatever. Gold was very cheap over there. I mean, gold was very cheap over there. So that was one of the bazaars with a lot of soldiers in there. Next. As I said earlier, now you see toy stores, bicycle stores. They're all in one row. It's really interesting to see all this stuff over there. Next. Okay, here is one home. When a Kuwaiti son gets married, I don't know how they determined whether it might be the oldest, I remember right, it was the oldest. Your parents would move in with you. Now, in Kuwait, you can have more than one wife. It's legal over there. You have your bedroom, and each of your, if I remember right, I think it was 7 spouses. If you decided that you were going to get married again, you had to divorce one and then marry again. You can't have more than 7 at one time. They would all stay in their own bedroom in that house. That's why it's so large. So if you have 7 wives, you got 7 bedrooms for them, you got your bedroom, and then you got your parents' bedroom, along with their own bedrooms. So they are actually very large homes. And these are the this is where the Kuwaitis live. You'd be surprised, I don't know if I copied one of them pictures or not, we'll see. The difference from what they live in and what the third country nationals live in is like night and day. They live in the slums of Kuwait City. Next. That's a morning sunrise on our camp. It's not even yellow, it's white. But there's so much sand in the air that that's what the sun looks like when it's coming up when we got sandy days. Kind of different. Next. Okay, here's our food court. That's the PX over there, basic change. We had pizza in there. We had an ice cream shop in that area, a few other food shops. That was another one when our soldiers were coming through. You know, they call them a surge. Because you can have anywhere up to 10,000 soldiers coming through at one time to 20,000. And we had to bed them all down. Sometimes some were lighter than others, but we were packed some days. Next. All right, here's what your Kuwaitis drive over there. I mean, that is a nice car. And they drive 100 miles an hour and they smack them up. They don't care. They live, they go buy another one.
What kind of car is it?
Mercedes. And I think next, I have another one in there. Okay. Okay, you can't see that one too bad, but if you look way up here, kind of to the top up here, that is all the vehicles from Iraqi war back in Desert Storm. We had a road, they call it the Road of Death, because that's where the bulk of the war hit when the American went over there to defend Kuwait. It was illegal, shouldn't say that on tape, to take pictures, so you gotta kind of take them as you're driving by with your pictures, so you're not being seen taking them. But both sides of the road is a berm, that's why they got the berm built around there, and them are all the vehicles. Now, far away up on a hill bank, farther away, where all the tanks are at, that were exploded and damaged over there. And they're still sitting there. Don't know how long they're gonna keep them there, but they were still sitting there back in 04, 05. So, next. And that's part of the Road of Death. That was where the big war hit during the Iraqi invasion on Kuwait. Not much to it. Next. Okay, I told you about Camp Navistar being a truck stop. Well, pass through that overpass there, that's going into Iraq. So I was able to get out in Camp Navistar. We had a meeting up there for environmental, and I took some pictures looking into Iraq. That's as close as I got to Iraq. That's as close as I wanted to get to Iraq anyway, so it was okay. But them are trucks lined up, ready to take supplies and equipment up there in Iraq. Next. Okay, these you're seeing all over the place. And this is one of the things that a lot of, even in Kuwait, veterans are coming home with respiratory problems. Because these oil wells all around our camp area that were burning, and all that, depends on which direction the wind was coming, would come into our camp area. And you'd be sleeping at night with all that stuff coming to your camp. So, and there is talk about, you know, Veterans Administration wants all the Iraqi veterans to come over and get in the VA system about possibility down the road of this hitting us. So far, I don't think I have any, but you never know. Next. Here's one of the palaces. Now, the Kuwaiti Emir, like a king, he has 3 palaces. And you never know where he's at. You never know where their treasures are. Because when the Emir moves to one of his palaces, all that treasure, all that gold and jewels go with him to that palace. The reason they did that, and the reason they do it, because when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they had won. Of course, they knew where he was at. You never know where the Emir is going to be at. They guard each palace as if he was there. That way, if they get invaded by another country, they won't find him as easy. Next. And there's just a picture of a suburb from the Kuwait City area. Next. That's kind of a dark one because my flash didn't work well. They have a 6-lane bowling alley over there. And I being a bowler, like I have been for 40-some years, I just thought it was kind of cool that they actually had a bowling alley, a bowling center in Kuwait. Anyway, next. Okay, how many people here have drove the new Cannon Falls roundabouts? How many people here like the roundabouts? Well, you know what? When they started coming around here in Minnesota, I think my first one was up in Burnsville someplace. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's coming here. And it's not just coming to Minnesota, but it's statewide or nationwide. This roundabout, which we run around a lot of them in Kuwait City and Kuwait area, that is a 3-lane roundabout. We went around one of them that was 4 lanes. And it's packed, as you can see, trying to get in that roundabout with 3 lanes of vehicles. Now, which lane would you say had the right of way to exit a roundabout? The center or the first one? Yeah, the center. The third one in has the right of way to shoot right in front of you to get out of the roundabout. That was part of my training I had to do for the drivers because you never know if they got a roundabout like that. But that is a busy roundabout, and most of them were like that. And it was hard when we had to go downtown and get stuff done. Next. And here's an Applebee's. Next. Christmas. Now, we know that the Muslims don't celebrate Christmas. But you know what? In Kuwait, they don't celebrate it, but who does? Our Americans, our English, all them workers that work in Kuwait City, they celebrate Christmas. So Kuwait, the Kuwaiti government, they want revenue. So they do promote Christmas over there. They don't do it, but they do it for us. Next, that's in one of the malls. Here's an amusement park that they have for their kids. It's quite interesting when you see the Kuwaiti women there and they're all in their black robes, gowns, and their kids are running around in normal street clothes. And they're standing out there in 120-degree day temperature in that black stuff. I just can't imagine that. Next. Here's another one of the palaces. Next. That's my messy office. We had a microwave, a little fridge. Trying to make as much things at home as possible. And I know up in Iraq, they were doing the same thing to make it comfortable as possible. They would have fridges and stuff to keep your water in there. And this is probably where I stopped drinking a lot of pop. I drank so much water over there because that was the one thing that they told us during our mobilization training. Don't drink a lot of pop over there because of sugar. Drink water. And I drank my share of it, and even back now at home, I hardly even touch pop. Next. Okay, Christmas time. Here's some of the tents that they set up for us for our Christmas Eve dinner, meal. Next. We sat in the rugs. There's some of the TCNs that cooked for us. And that's food. Next. Desserts. Now, that was a good feast with all them desserts. Guess who made them? The American teachers. The American teachers that are over there teaching the Kuwaiti children, they went through and they do that every year and they make the desserts. So that's why they look so familiar. Next. And that's the line of people going through the line for Christmas Eve dinner. Next. And they put on one heck of a meal. Now, I have a little story about this one. We have who up there? Archbishop? He is the highest ranking chaplain in the Department of the Army. He is a 3-star general. I'll tell you a little story about him. And I did send that picture home to my brother. And he put it on the bulletin board at our church over at First English Church. And Pastor Ed, when I got home from there, he says, I remember seeing a picture with you with the Archbishop. How did that happen? Well, the little story here is that when the Archbishop was coming in to do Christmas Eve Mass, they needed security guards to go with him. And no enlisted member wanted to volunteer. So we had a captain who was Catholic from Boston. We had a warrant officer who was Catholic from Boston. And the fellow warrant officer that worked with me, who was from South Carolina, was also Catholic. So they all volunteered to go because none of the enlisted wanted to go. Well, then the captain come up to me and said, "Chief, we need another security person. Would you like to go with us? We can't get anyone else to go with. And I know you're not a Catholic, but would you like to be with us for the escort?" I said, over there, a holiday is another normal day for us. Other than maybe you get a better meal, but days just run together. I said, "Sure, I'll go with." So we escorted the Archbishop. We picked him up at the Ali Salim Airport, where the Air Force landed. We got in our convoys. We convoyed him up to Camp Beering, where he was doing Catholic Mass on New Year's Eve. So then after he got done with Mass, we all got out, and he says, "Hey, who wants to get a picture with me?" So I thought, I'll jump in with him. Not every day you get a picture taken with an Archbishop. So anyway, that's that story with that one. Next. And there's Ali Salim. That's where the Air Force lands when they go over there. The Air Force goes over there for like 6-month tours, and then they're back home. And so there's some C-130s there. That was right across the road from where we were at. Next. There's an ice cream vendor along that road. Selling ice cream bars out of there. Next. And there's another picture of Ali Salim a little far distance away. Next. There's some demolition. They're no different than us over here. They demolition their old buildings, and then they put up new high-rises. Next. And that's just the park area. Nice green grass. There are some spots in Kuwait City that they actually bring black dirt in from wherever they get it from another country, maybe from here, who knows. Then they get grass seed, and they plant it, and then they water it. So you do find some grassy spots once in a while. Next. Okay, this was a unique house because you can see the doors, a little bit of gold inlay in them. I just thought that every time we passed that house, I would always try and get a picture of it, but I was either too late, because you're driving in a vehicle. And I just thought that was a cool house with those doors that were made and inlaid with gold. Next. Okay, there's the Liberation Tower. After Desert Storm, the Kuwaiti government wanted to recognize the liberation of Kuwait that the United States did. So they built that tower, and of course they called it the Liberation Tower. Looks like the Space Needle out in Washington, D.C. But anyway, so that's what that tower is for. Next. Here's a checkpoint for the 35th Iraqi Armor Brigade. They were right outside our back berm. We could see that from our camp. So we had our protection from the Kuwaiti Armor Brigade if we needed it. So they were right close by. That was nice. We went up there for a staff visit with the commander of the Kuwaiti Armor Division and had lunch with him one day. And he came around and said, "Do you want coffee?" And we all said, "Well, sure, we'll have some coffee." Okay, so he got his orderly, bring some coffee cups. Real little small, like little teacups. I'm thinking, boy, they don't give you much coffee. So they poured the coffee, and then I think it was captain that was with us, said, "Well, watch when you drink that now." So I took one sip of it, and I was like, oh my word, you talk about some strong, potent coffee. Whew! I don't know why they only give you that little small cup. Anyway, so next. Okay, here yet, this was done in 2004 when we were over there and going to a camp. Here's a little village that was left over from the Iraqi war yet. They have not dismantled or torn down any of the exploded buildings or none of the homes there. I don't know why they leave all that stuff up, but I guess they want to remember what happened to them when we went over there to liberate them from Iraq. But that's one of the villages that was bombed by Iraqis. Next. That's part of it too, with the tower laying across the building. Next. Okay, here we are. Army birthday, June 14th, 2005. In the Army, I don't know how many people are in the Army that are here. You know, of course, like Navy, we all celebrate our birthdays. And our Army birthday is on Flag Day. And the tradition in the Army is, on any military installation, you take the oldest soldier and the youngest, along with the commanding general and the command sergeant major. And, of course, who was the oldest? You know? So it was myself, the gal to the far right, or your left. She had just finished boot camp and individual training. She was 18 years old. She had just finished it and got cross level with this unit and got deployed with us. So she was the youngest. And we cut the birthday cake, and then we just do the initial cutting. After that, the general and the command sergeant major, they finish up cutting, they do the serving. So you finally get waited on by a general officer. Anyway, next. And there's another shot, Christmas decorations outside of a store. I just thought the Santa Claus were kind of cute hanging there. Next. Here is one of the very, very busy streets. They are probably width-wise of a very narrow one-way street. However, there is that not over there. They go both directions on those streets. So as you're driving, you're moving over, then you go, you move over, you go. Because you got cars coming at you. So it's very busy. It's very small, narrow streets in some of the old parts of Kuwait City. Next. There we were doing some medvac training. Because you know, you never knew. We always had to be on the lookout. We could have gotten hit by the Iraqis down in Kuwait at one of our camps. So we did have mandatory training. So there was a day of medvac training we were doing there, in case we had to get some soldiers helicoptered out. Next. And there's just some of the street signs they have over there, both in American, English, and Arabic. Next. Okay. This is the great day. This is the day that we departed Camp Victory. September 8th, 2005 was our departure. I was going through our security area. Next. Another shot of the security area as we're leaving. Next. Another shot. Saying goodbye to our camp. Next. And there's one of the buses that was in front, carrying some of our troops for our unit heading to Kuwait City to get on our plane to come home. Next. There are the TCNs going through what we threw away. Because if you can't pack it in your duffel bag, and we were allowed 2 duffel bags, you left it there. So if you bought extra stuff, you just left it there, you were done. And they would rummage through them dumpsters. Next. Okay. On the way home, we went through Iceland. That's the Iceland Naval Air Station. Kind of dark. That was a picture of me standing by the sign. And then we got inside, the USO was in there giving us treats and stuff. So, next. And there we are. Our landing, our first place we landed was Bangor, Maine. And that's just a picture out of the window of the airplane of Maine. Because it was like we're coming back into the United States airspace. It was a good feeling. Next. And then after we got our demob all done, on September 15th, buses came in, we're gathered around there, saying our goodbyes, because we met good friends over there in that unit. We probably never see them again unless they would have a reunion. Because like I say, a lot of us, we had an E8 that was transferred from Wisconsin, but we were from a lot of places all over the United States. And that was loading up the buses. They head for the airport to come home. And next. And I think that's the same shot, another one. Getting ready to get on the buses to come home. Next. And we're done. We left Fort Drum, New York. We arrived here on September 8th. We did all of our demobbing On September 15th, we loaded on the buses, went to the airport in Syracuse, New York, and got on the planes and came home on September 15th, 10 days before my 59th birthday. We got out of Kuwait 1 month earlier than what we were supposed to. That was a good thing. If we'd have stayed there through October like we should have, I would have been celebrating my 59th birthday in Kuwait at Camp Victory. So it was a good thing to get home. I was able to celebrate my birthday here, and it was over. I remember when the first news article 10 years ago, this is, I was home. I was in November 2004. I was sitting in the desert camp this month. Had a lot of residents in Cannon Falls. They'd come down and they read the beacon that I was being deployed at age 58. I think a lot of you remember that day when I hit the beacon. They said, "Why are you going over there at age 58? They can't send you over there at age 58." I said, "Well, I figured that day might come, but I was hoping it wasn't." And I said, as long as a reserve soldier is over 18 months to turning 60, we are deployable. And they got me in July of 2004, so I was ahead of that. If they would have waited another year, then they could have taken me, but they didn't. So anyway, that is my story of being in Kuwait. I know that I have fellow soldiers, because we do communicate. I have the warrant officer that him and I work together with over there. He's been back there 3 times. We have a young lieutenant that's been back there, I think, 3 times already. So they are doing multiple deployments yet. I was glad that with my age being what I was, I knew I was only going over there for 1 tour. I knew that I would not be back there for a second. And I figured the second tour would probably have been in Iraq. So I was blessed in a way to be old. I can actually say one thing helped me of being old. So anyway, any questions? Correct, they only work when they work at their banks. And they watch their shopping centers as security. Alcohol, oh boy. Well, how many know that in a normal military operation, especially for Army, you have alcohol? Well, this is kind of, one of my pet peeves is we are over there fighting and defending them. And we had to abide by their customs. In Kuwait, and this is what's funny about this one, I'm glad you brought that up. In Kuwait, of course, in Muslim countries, there's no alcohol. So we could not have any alcohol consumption on our camp. We had beer we could buy, but it was all non-alcoholic beer in the PX. Okay? And so that's just the way it was. So for 11 months, you were dry over there. Which it didn't hurt me anyway, because I could live with it without it. But when you would talk to one of our interpreters, who I got to be a very good friend with, and find out that in these Kuwaiti men's homes, and they entertain fellow Kuwaitis, they go to their little basement area, they have alcohol. And what the interpreter told us was, we were sitting there BSing one evening, is that when the current Emir passes away, his son, the next Emir, young, his plan is going to be put nightclubs in Kuwait City because he wants to get the revenue. So when that day comes, who knows? I haven't heard that the Emir's gone over there yet, so no alcohol.
One more.
Yeah.
Is it true that XL Energy worked with the government to try to get you home for Christmas to light up again?
Yeah, it was a dark time in the Hermanson household over Christmas, because Cheryl was getting asked by a lot of VFW members, Legion members, or whoever, public, we'll come up and put the lights up. Well, she didn't have a problem with the people coming up to help with the lights. The problem was taking them down and putting them back in the same spot that I put everything. So she thought, nope, this is gonna be a remembrance of when I was gone. So she had no lights up that year. Yeah, it was always interesting too, until summer came. During the winter months, you would see the mother dressed up in her black, the kids in swimming suits along the beach, and they'd be sitting out there on that beach in their black, and the kids would be out swimming and playing around on the beach. Kuwait is pretty much of a little bit of a liberation country as a Muslim country. It's just that the ladies still have to be in their tribal wear, but they do drive over there. I got a few pictures, and like you said, you cannot legally take pictures of the Kuwaiti women over there. And I was if we were shopping someplace, I'd take my camera and kind of have it at my side, and then take pictures that way. Sometimes they came out okay, sometimes they came out bad. But I do have some pictures of some of the ladies driving in cars. So they do drive in Kuwait. Yep, it's legal. I think it's about the only Muslim country that they can drive in. Yeah, yeah. So, any other questions? If not, I want to thank you, Rod, for having me here today. All I can say is that it was a very interesting deployment. Thank you.
Thank you, Duane Hermanson, Senior Vice Commander of the Minnesota VFW, soon to be Commander. So thank you for being here today.